Hey, welcome back everyone. Next episode on the pizza oven. We are currently, I don't know if you can see it, but we're currently curing and doing the last curing fire for the pizza oven, getting it up to about 500 degrees today. So while that's going on, I figure I'd make a little bit more progress and work on the capstone that's going to go on the top of the chimney. So let's get to it. Walk you through what we got going on here. So the top of the chimney, the chimney pipe's going to stick out about a foot, and then I want to have a capstone, and then I'm going to stone the rest of the chimney, and then do the cedar shingles. And for the cap, I want it to be tapered, and so I want this cap to actually be slanted, so if water hits it, it wants to naturally run off of it and not run towards the middle of it where the pipe is, because I want to not silicone the pipe fully around that opening to allow that to act as a natural vent. So that's the plan anyway, so we'll see how it works out. So how I'm tackling this problem, walk you through what I've done. So got a 4x8 sheet of some particle board, cut it 27 by 27 inch square. So I calculated that by taking the box I had up there on the chimney, adding about 2 inches for the stone, and then adding about another inch or so for the overhang of the cap beyond the stone. And so that got me my 27 inch square. I then measured where the chimney pipe was inside of the chimney box. If everything's perfect, it should be centered. Mine is not centered. Mine is a little bit off center. That's just kind of how it goes sometimes. And so I found where it's located, and then I marked on my form here where the chimney would be located when the capstone would be placed on it. And something to keep in mind is when you pour this, the top of the cap is going to be facing down and the bottom is going to be facing up. And so when you look at this, it's going to be flipped. And so let's say you measure what you would call the left hand side of the chimney to the pipe on your form, that's actually going to be the right hand side. And I almost made a mistake and got that flipped, because once this is done, you're going to flip the stone over, and now what's over here is actually going to be on the left. And so just make sure you think through that and not pour it on the wrong side. I mean, if your pipe's directly in the middle, it doesn't matter, but mine's not. So how I built this, cut this 27 inch square for the bottom, went ahead and cut 3 3/4 inch sides, pre-drilled and screwed in. And I did 3 3/4 because I wanted about a 2 inch deep front face, the part that you're going to see, and then there's about an inch drop from that point to the top of the stone. That's what's going to create the slope for the rain to run off. And so to create the slope, what I did is I took some more pieces of this particle board and ripped them down to a 10-degree angle. And so under this hardboard around the perimeter is thin strips, an inch thick, that's a 10-degree slope. So when you put this board on, the slope will allow it to bend towards the center. And I put that all the way around the perimeter and nailed it in, or Brad nailed it or stapled it in. Then I cut a piece of 1/8 inch hardy board or hardboard to fit the square, 27 inches. I traced on the back of it, edge to edge, corner to corner. That created kind of an X in the back of it. And then I took out about a 1/16 or a little bit deeper groove out of the back along that. And the reason for that is that's the relief in the board. So when you press this down to create the angle, the slope, that the board will give enough to allow you to do that. So I did that, and you can see here there's a little bit of crack happened right where some of the slanting, that is, which is fine. Majority of this stone is not going to be seen. So the main detail that's going to be seen is the rock face edge, which we'll talk about. So then I measured where the chimney was going to be, and I used, I think, about an inch larger hole than what the chimney actually was. This is a 10-inch or 8-inch internal, 10-inch external chimney. I cut it, I think, at 11-inch circle or so. Put it down, stapled it, the hardboard all the way around the edge, and then stapled it all the way around this opening, and that created this nice sloped surface we have here. And then this gap, you're going to have a little bit of a gap because of where the bottom board was versus where your hardboard is, and so I just filled that in with some caulk to make it as flush as possible. To get to the pipe to stay in, I put the pipe where it was supposed to be. I traced around it with a Sharpie, pulled it off, and then I put a bead of caulk around that line, and then I put the pipe back in place and then let that caulk dry. And once that caulk dries, that acts as a sealant to keep this pipe where it needs to be. Then once that was dry, I used some leftover sill plate gasket foam here, put a few wraps around it. It's probably, I don't know, 1/2 inch or so thick. And what that acts as the barrier to keep the concrete off of the pipe, which will give you, again, a little bit of wiggle room once you get it up there for final adjustments. It'll allow you to move it around a little bit around the pipe. But it also acts as an easy way to get the pipe out of it once you're done. You should be able to wiggle this pipe, pull it out, get the foam out, and your cast cap should come out pretty easily. So that's this, the hardboard, that's the pipe. And then the last detail is just the face of the cap. I'm going to use 2 bags of 60-pound sand topping mix with 2 bags of the Liquicrete from Concrete Countertop Solutions, and going to go use those 2 bags, and it should fill this up most of the way. It's not going to fill it up all the way. It's going to be a little bit short, but I am using their rock face form edges as well, and so I'm going to use the same rock face on all the countertops that are going to be poured out here, but we're going to give them a try on this stone first. So that's it for the form. As I mentioned, I'm going to use the 2 bags. I'm also going to use a colorant. I'm going for kind of a blue stone that kind of looks similar to those caps. And so I have some concrete pigment here. I'm going to use 2.66 ounces of the blue pigment and 4 ounces of the charcoal pigment for every 60-pound bag of sand topping mix. And so I'll be mixing those up 1 bag at a time, measuring out with the scale here the precise ounces for each bag. Mix that up really well with my paddle mixer, and we'll pour them in and let it set up. And then hopefully in a day, 2 days, we'll be able to crack it off and see what it looks like. I am also putting some rebar mesh in this, and so once I put the first bag in, I'm going to lay this this rebar mesh I'm going to go ahead and lay that rebar mesh into the form as well to give us some extra strength. And so that'll go in between the first bag and the second bag. That looks pretty good. just show you what I got. So the edge came out pretty darn good. There's a few air pockets, but not too bad really. Next time I'll probably use the reciprocating solvent a little bit more, just to get a little bit more of the air out, but it's not bad. And the corners turned out pretty well. Yeah, overall I think that's a success. I'm going to go ahead and let it sit here for another day, get a little bit harder, and then we'll flip it over and try and figure out a plan to get it up there. Bring it back. All right, so the tractor's running, so I apologize for the noise. Ready to get this capstone put on. So my plan, I've went ahead and taken out the 2-foot section of pipe, so it's no longer in. So that'll give me a nice flat flat surface to put it on, so I don't have to lift it up over that pipe. I have a batch of some pretty wet mortar sitting there ready to go. I'm going to go up there and put a layer of mortar on that top cement board, then come back down and then put the cap on. And so my plan to get the cap up there, you can see I got the tractor here with the forks, pallet, and I've got the cap strapped on a piece of foam here onto this pallet. My plan is then to drive the tractor and get it as far up to that peak, lift it and set it up there to hold the stone up as far close to that peak as I possibly can, and then hopefully from there I'll be able to unstrap it and then hopefully be able to pick it up on that steep slope and get it on top of there and then position it to where it needs to be. That's the plan, at least. I think that's the best, easiest route. It's about 80-90 pounds, and so this is probably the best plan I have on how to get it up there. So let's see what happens. What I was able to do is I was able to kind of use that pallet as some footing, and it was about, again, 90 pounds. It was not easy, but it did work. So it's now up there. I got some of the mortar that was spilling around the side cleaned up, but at this point it is done, and so glad that part is over. I measured around the edges. It looks like it's sitting on there pretty square. So now at this point we're just going to grab the pipe, put the pipe back on, and put the rain cap and get that all finished, and that's one more thing down. So all right, well, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching. Next project we're just about ready to start is the cedar shake roof, and so I'm going to try and document that along the way as well. So check back soon.